Welcome to
Bacta Passion,
a podcast about Star Wars Disney Plus shows. Now talking about the Book of Boba Fett. My name's Bubba, and with me, as always, is somebody who's never refused to have his helmet cleaned and serviced. It's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Bubba. I'm pleased to be with Bubba, who, like the mayor's Majordomo minion, is always funny yet condescending, but Bubba is also faithful as a Gamorrean guard.
Oh, thank you. And is felt after this pandemic where you can't go outside, can't go to the gym. Catfish, I want to ask you something. Where is my tribute?
I just gave you your damn tribute.
Oh,
I said
wow.
you were funny,
Yeah.
condescending as hell, and
Okay.
also faithful. I don't think it's going to get much better than that.
It won't get any more honest. Well, hey, everybody, today we are breaking down the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1, Episode 1, Chapter 1, Stranger in a Strange Land. Or as it's better known, Boba Goes to Burning Man. Hello.
Yeah.
Catfish, it feels like just yesterday and 12 months of prior yesterdays, we were podcasting about The Mandalorian, and now we're back. It's the Book of Boba Fett. What is your rating for Chapter 1, Stranger in a Strange Land?
Well, I'm going to give it 8.9 out of 10, what I like to call double S's.
Double S's?
Yeah, Sarlacc to stormtroopers.
Ooh.
Listen,
Ouch. Yeah.
You know, some people say stormtroopers are always there at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're there at the right time, and one was there for Boba. Before I watched the show, before I watched this episode, they had a kind of a little background 20-minute thing on Disney Plus about Boba and the fandom about Boba and the whole thing like that. So I love the show. I love the slowness of it. There really was. This was just sort of kind of like a background setup. I mean, we did have our requisite parkour action, which got a little too parkoury for me. We also had a lot of his background, which, to be honest with you, a little bit I didn't care too much about.
Okay.
But I love the setup for the show. There was a lot of good humor in it. This is all I'm asking for. I mean, Bubba, you and I, we were at Disneyland like a week after Disney bought the whole Lucasfilm. And they had already had T-shirts up with like Mickey with a lightsaber and the whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to monetize the hell out of this. But I do not mind. Give me more of this stuff. Disney Plus, give me all the Marvel TV shows. Give me all the Star Wars TV shows if they're going to be like this. Great production value, fun. I'm all in for this, Bubba.
Man, that's awesome.
So what about you? What was your rating? You have more attachment to Boba Fett, more feelings about Boba Fett than I do. What's your rating for the first episode?
I'm a bit of two minds, so my rating was a bit tough, and I ended up on 7 double J's out of 10.
Oh, double J's. Yeah. Oh, wait, double J's?
That's Jawa justice. If it's there, it's mine. It doesn't matter if it's on a partially dead guy, it's mine. If somebody drops their helmet full of credits, those credits go in me pocket. Jawa justice, I love it. Now, even though this is Star Wars, this is a brand new show, and you have to buy in. As an audience member, you have to buy in.
Got it.
Let me say, my buy-in moment was 30 seconds into the episode.
Love
they
it.
do that pan across Jabba's palace, and then a pan to the palace, a pan down the hallway we've seen in Return of the Jedi, a pan of the throne room we've seen before, and then we pan to the penthouse suite, which we hadn't seen before. So they're setting me up. And then we see Boba in a Bacta tank, and then he's remembering all his history, including when he was in the Sarlacc's gut. I was on board. Now, I only went 7 out of 10, maybe because of the structure of this episode, Catfish. In The Mandalorian, which we've podcasted about so many times, those were mainly standalone episodes, mini adventures. Mando goes to town. He gets screwed over and has to do a favor for somebody. And then the storyline is resolved at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I really, in most of my TV watching, those standalone episodic episodes, I'm not usually a fan of, but it does give you a beginning, middle, of an end. I like serialized stories like Game of Thrones and a lot of prestige TV, where a lot of times a storyline in an episode will build up to a shocking reveal, a cliffhanger, some monumental change, which propels you to watch the next episode. This first episode of the Book of Boba Fett feels like a mix of Mando standalone as well as a serialized storyline, but it didn't have that big twist at the end. And I still don't have a great picture of what the season-long story arc is yet, so I'm not sure it was a great first episode. A lot of great moments, so 7 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could see that. I mean, a lot of the background, again, like I said, I was like, all right, that's fine. I mean, one thing you did learn about him is that he is sort of slow to anger to a fault.
Yes.
It's like, well, I think we saw him make probably 5 really poor decisions just in this first episode that are going to either cause him trouble down the line in the past or are going to cause him trouble down the line here.
Unleash thy anger. Here, I'm the emperor wanting him to unleash his badassness. I wonder how fans of Boba Fett are going to feel about this, mainly because, admittedly, if you ignore his ignoble first death in Return of the Jedi, every other time we've seen him, Boba Fett has been an ass kicker, taking names, totally in charge. This episode, throughout the entire episode, we see him in a weakened state. When you get digested by something, even if it isn't for 1,000 years, it takes something out of you, don't you think?
Well, it does, but you know what? Watching him in this, and again, we have seen him be a badass in the Mandalorian TV show. But I wonder if you would have talked about this, because I think this is interesting. You know, Ms. Catfish, who is, you know, she watched the whole thing, you know, and she's watched the Star Wars, but she asked me a question I could not answer, Bubba.
Ooh, what'd she say?
She said, "So Boba Fett, is he a villain?" And I was like, well, I mean, you could say that through most of the movies, he was just doing his job. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad guy, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
So
you felt like you couldn't give her an answer?
I mean, I felt like I was like, well, yes. I mean, you know, a villain in that, like, you know, he did some bad things to the people who were the heroes.
Right. They probably deserved it.
Yeah. I mean, Han definitely deserved it for sure.
Oh, yeah. Pay your debts, man.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I mean, it wasn't like Boba had any personal animus towards Han. He just likes money in he like gold coins in his helmet.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Hey, listeners, we want this to be an interactive podcast. If you're new to Parsec Passion, know that Bubba and Catfish have been talking about a bunch of great TV shows, and it's always not just us. You're a part of this as well. So if you want to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at @PHQ. That's the word double. The single letter P is in podcast. HQ is in headquarters at @PHQ. Also at @PHQ on Instagram. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/ you guessed it, PHQ. And on YouTube, we're at youtube.com/C/PP Media. So come talk to us. Now, we are older fans who've been watching these shows, these movies and TV shows since the 70s, and we'd love to give away prizes to the people we like to call double L's.
Double L's?
Yes, our loyal listeners. We want to give you a tribute as long as you tribute us. And so how do we say that? If you like us, even if you don't like us, please subscribe and follow us on however you get this podcast platform, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Audible. However you find us, please follow, subscribe, and send us a screenshot of you subscribed, and we will give away a prize during our podcast on episode 7, the final episode of the Book of Boba Fett season 1.
7? That seems like an odd number.
I think that you're pointing out that The Mandalorian was 8 episodes each, and now we're only getting 7 episodes. You're right. That doesn't make too much sense. I assume, and you know what happens when you assume, you make an ass out of you and no one else. But I assume that because of the pandemic, maybe they tried to keep it down just a bit. But that is a guess. I don't know why it was only 7. But unlike Mando, this is only 7.
I really was just noting that 7 is an odd number.
Math was never my strong suit. So, hey, please subscribe, and we're going to give you a Book of Boba Fett prize at the end of this podcast. Last year, we gave away a giant-sized...
the Funko Pop?
Right, a giant Funko Pop of The Mandalorian and Grogu, and this year, we're going to be giving away some prizes as well. If for some reason, we gave away so many prizes last year, if for whatever reason you didn't receive your prize, write to us again and let us know at Double PHQ, because we want to make sure all our listeners get these prizes we can't wait to give away. Catfish, you ready to dive into Stranger in a Strange Land?
Let's get into it.
Now, as we break down this episode, we're going to follow 2 storylines. Boba in his flashback dreams when he's taken his Bacta Baths. And we're also going to follow him as the new Daimyo. How did they say that, Catfish?
Daimyo, I believe
Daimyo
is the way you say it.
Yeah, it's a term for a Japanese feudal lord, which they were saying Boba is. And so that's kind of the story has 2 timelines, 2 stories. Catfish, which did you enjoy most? Did you enjoy him being the new crime boss, or did you enjoy his flashback times more? Which did you like?
Oh, definitely by like 80-20. The present. I'm all about the present.
Okay, so hey, let's get into that.
I'm not even sure why if we're just going to keep going back into the past, or whether that was just set up for this episode, and why we didn't just let's just get it all done, and then let's move to the front. And that's kind of what I was saying before, was like, you know, maybe people who are bigger fans of Boba Fett really want an exploration of where he's been because they love Boba Fett. For me, I don't care where he's been. Let's start now. Give me 10 minutes of background. Let's never talk about it again. And let's take off with the new story.
Okay, well, I do think that then we'll hold what we would call the Mandoverse timeline. Let's discuss that second. And let's jump, like Michael Jackson, into our Bacta tank of oxygen and get into these dreams first. So we'll save your favorite stuff for last. Boba's dreams, maybe if it's like, hey, there's some kids who may not remember all of this stuff, they flash back to this water planet, this water world. It's known as Kamino, the clone factory facility where Boba was actually created as a clone of his father Jango. We don't really see that. We just see the exteriors of it. But later in the dream, it quickly cuts to a Geonosis arena where Boba's dad, Jango, your dad or your donor, burn, was decapitated. And what's interesting is they used a shot that's either new or was not in that movie Attack of the Clones, where it's over Boba's shoulder as he looks at the helmet. So good. And then real quickly, those are both like flashes of him as a child. And then it flashes very quickly to Boba in belly. Holy smokes. This is maybe 2 minutes into the episode. I am like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Well, I mean, this for sure we needed, right? We needed to do. We needed this info.
Right. How in the world, if you're going to be digested over 1,000 years, how in the world do you survive that? Well, somehow in the folds of this creature's stomach, there's also a stormtrooper. Now, that stormtrooper wouldn't have been there during the Return of the Jedi scene that Boba ended up in the Rancor belly because there were no stormtroopers around there. So this stormtrooper had been there quite a while. But Boba, we're seeing him in action. We're seeing him resourceful. He swims, I guess is the best way to describe it, swims in the stomach acid over the stormtrooper. He rips an oxygen line out of the stormtrooper's mask. He breathes it, and then he lights up that Sarlacc's belly, and he crawls out. Oh, brutal.
So good. I mean, this is just a beautiful Western. I mean, it's just beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Well, you're right. This is like a lot of Western. It's that guy who's been left to hang on a rope who somehow survived, and he's crawling in the desert. I don't really remember this part of the Western, though, when he collapses and then a bunch of Jawas come up and just strip him blind. Oh, I love Jawas so much.
Oh man, they are so good. They're like, oh, this is a disamiz.
I could use this. I could use this. This barely breathing human, not so helpful. I can't barter him for anything. You don't get a ride. Oh, I love it.
All right, so to add insult to injury, now that after he beats the Jawas, then the Tuskens get him, and they're like, well, you know what? Maybe he doesn't have any armor, but we could use him for something else.
I want to say target practice, but when you're using a club, is it really target practicing? I want to point out that in addition to recreating this little Sarlacc pit, the fact that the effects guys ended up having a shot of the destroyed sail barge there and the skiffs there, the desert skiffs there outside the Sarlacc pit, I loved it. And then Boba gets tortured. I mean, when you're dragged behind a bantha by a rope until you collapse, and then you're just dragged on your backside, are the Tuskens torturing him?
I mean, I'm not even sure what their plan for him was, unless it was just the eventual, we'll have him dig water, unless it was just for target practice. Although it seems it's kind of unfair to do target practice against something that's tied up already.
Right, tied to a post, and then it's like, all right, everybody, it's pinata time. They just beat him and pummel him and knock him out.
Or maybe they just wanted to use him as an object lesson for the Rodian prisoner, because when he tries to make his move, the Rodian prisoner's like, nah, I don't think so.
Right. Boba, once again, we're seeing how he's ingenious. He calls over this dog, and he's like, this dog that was also in Attack of the Clones. It was actually designed to be on Geonosis, behind the scenes work. It was not designed to be on Geonosis in the arena there in Attack of the Clones. And then Lucas said, I got too many things there. So he moved that digital creature into the Tatooine segment. But anyway, Boba's smart. He calls this dog over, knocks it out, uses its teeth to cut off his bindings. Love it.
And then what happens? Not a good friend. Unlike you, Bubba, who's like, here's a gift. Now here's how much it cost. He says, the Rodian's like, escapee over here.
Right.
Horrible.
Oh, it's terrible. Boba makes a run for it. The little Tusken kid who's been with him tried to stop Boba. Boba took his stick real easy. And the kid puts up his hands like, don't hit me, don't hit me. And so Boba, he wasn't like me at all. He was unwilling to beat a child on the ground with a stick.
Oh, man.
But he runs. He's shown up again. And then the Warriors decide, we've had enough of this, and just beat him up. Oh, now I was joking about this being like a Burning Man. Have you ever had such a tough time out in the desert like this, Catfish?
I've only been tortured while trying to sleep at 2 a.m. and having somebody play dubstep really loud at the tent next to me. At Burning Man, you can't knock on someone's tent and go, excuse me, do you know it's 2 a.m? Stop playing that music.
Would you have preferred to have been beaten with gaffy sticks rather than listen to that dubstep?
Yes. I prefer physical to psychological torture.
Okay, so the next time we see the little kid, this little child Tusken, we assume, based on his side, he takes Boba and the Rodian out on an adventure. He's like, hey, I got something fun to do. Let's go dig up water. And when I say let's, I mean you guys dig up water as I stand here and sleep.
Is the adults are like, wow, this guy's pretty resourceful. He used a dog to cut his things. We beat the crap out of him. But you know what? It's safe to send him out with the kid.
Now, while they were out with the kid, we should point out that the kid notices something over a little mound, a dune of sand, and they see a farm, we assume a farm, a bit like Luke Skywalker used to live on when he was a kid, and some biker gang had shown up and is torturing this family. They're spray painting their symbol on the front of the house, and Boba sees, okay, those are criminals. Maybe he's thinking, well, that's the kind of criminal I am. I would beat up people and take their stuff. We never admittedly saw Boba do something so violent, but these guys...
Now, what were they taping? That symbol was like a JL? Was it letters or just a symbol?
I couldn't make that out. Listeners, if you have any idea what they were painting, and I bet, we're recording this hours after the episode was put up on Disney Plus. So if you know, be sure to tweet at us at PHQ. Go to our Facebook page, leave a comment, facebook.com/PHQ. Let us know what that symbol was. I think, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think there's going to be a bit of question. Well, I'll say it. I'll go ahead and say it.
Yeah, you're already getting ahead of yourself. Let's do this.
So let's jump to it. We have these bad guys on this swoop bike. We are in what you would call the present timeline or the forward timeline. You have a city where there are a lot of possible villains out there. There's this mayor who is threatening Boba. There was a Trandoshan who gives this threatening line. Of course, it could have been nice, but you never know where he says, "May you never leave Mos Espa." And there's also that mysterious woman, Madame Garza, who runs the sanctuary. Like I think there might be a bit of mystery, maybe I'm wrong, about who controls all these thugs. And so I wonder if these thugs are part of a story that we're going to find out in the present timeline in Mos Espa. So that I was thinking that's why that was there.
All right.
Anyway, so the kid takes a nap. Like the kid is so unafraid of Boba, he could take a nap while Boba and the Rodian dig up these water plants. And this Rodian is not having the best time of it, is it? He's digging, and he's like, well, no, this isn't one of these water plants. What's this? What's this? It looks like a scaly object. It looks like this. And it was the paw of a creature. And when I talk about wonderful moments, for me, the tenseness of that Rodian alien moving the sand and seeing, wait, this isn't what I think it is. Oh, crap, it's a claw. I loved that. I was like, oh, my goodness. Oh, hell no. And out bursts one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. And let me say, I've gone to USC, so I've seen some ugly things.
I don't even know what you mean by that.
I'm kidding. So I'm saying some monsters in the damn sand. What did you think of this insanity?
This thing was so awesome. I was like, how are they going to... First of all, Rodian, that's hashtag justice for Boba. The Rodian lived as he died. Cowardly.
Yeah, and kind of like most Disney villains, it looked like he got his head smashed into the sand. Killed.
And then Boba shows how he is badass Boba and takes this thing down. And then, of course, he gets all the credit for it. He's the one who gets to carry the head back. Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. The young Tusken brings the head back. Now, I'll say this, though.
Yeah.
Boba gets his props because an older Tusken hands some water to Boba in an open acknowledgement like, there is no way that my jerk off of a kid actually was able to kill that thing. So thank you.
Well, considering this might be a bit of a crime story, that could be a bribe. Tell anyone my son didn't kill this monster. And you'll get it.
So that's it. So he goes from robbed by Jawas to beaten by Tuskens to now apparently, that he actually deserves some water.
That's all you had to do. That's all it took.
Yeah. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Now, observant listeners and viewers of The Mandalorian might have been wondering, well, gee, we've seen Boba show up on The Mandalorian wearing a Tusken hoodie, pullover garb, and he had a gaffy stick and a Tusken type of weapon. Perhaps this is how he gets it. So we've seen that. We've seen how Boba seemingly might get accepted into these Tuskens, and that's how, when we meet him in The Mandalorian, he was dressed to impress in the Tusken gear.
Well, okay, so as you said, so basically, from where we saw him in The Mandalorian, we basically have all the information to understand.
Yeah, you should be able to put two and two together.
Where he was left in the movies and where he picked up again. So my question to you, Bubba, is,
yes,
do you think we're done with backstory, or do you think we'll get more backstory, especially between him and his personal assassin? I love the way that, you know what, it's not like, first of all, he doesn't say, this is just my assassin.
Right. No.
No, he doesn't say this is my apprentice assassin. You just have to know this is a master assassin.
Right.
And I wonder how many you have to get to become a master. There's apprentice, journeyman, and then there's probably something else, and then master.
Right. It's like, this is my assassin, Dr. Assassin. Well, let me say now, this is a bit of a spoiler, but if you've watched the trailers, you know that there are at least a couple more scenes set back in this time period. So we will see, I assume, this Tusken timeline for at least one more episode. I suppose there's a chance it could be throughout the entire series. But from the trailers, there's some scenes from this Tusken time that we haven't seen yet. So I assume maybe at least one more to catch us up to date.
And Bubba, something that sort of crosses across both these things I'd like to talk about this now is this bath here.
The Bacta.
Yeah, the Bacta. So this is like one of those oxygen chambers that athletes use. Is this some sort of it cleans wounds? Heals?
Yes. So the idea, and I'm not going to go as detailed as maybe Wikipedia would, but the idea is back in The Empire Strikes Back at the beginning of that movie, spoiler alert, Luke Skywalker kind of gets beat up by a snow monster and gets some wounds. And so they dunk him in a bath. It wasn't like a bath you would lay down in. It was like a tube that he was upright in, and it healed his wounds. And then that went forward actually in the movie Rogue One, you see kind of what's left of Vader from behind. You don't see his face, but him and Bacta tank. And so the idea, and in fact, back in season 1 of The Mandalorian, when he kind of blew up real good, the assassin IG-11 sprayed him what they called Bacta spray. So it's this idea of this liquid or the aerosol, as it was in The Mandalorian, that can kind of heal a lot of wounds. It helps the body kind of spur growth. And so if you look at him in this episode, when he is in the Tusken timeline, he's still got a lot of scars, kind of beat up. But here, as we switch to the crime boss timeline, he really just has like one scar across his face still. He and Fennec wakes him up and says they're here, and he gets his double Ds to dress him up, those droids to dress him in his armor. He looks pretty good considering. So Bacta is just, like you would wonder if I could use it to cure acne, if like you have a sore muscle aches, what could it cure? But it's kind of a one thing cure all.
All right, got it.
Have you ever done any of those
lubrication for the soul? I've never done either an oxygen tank or or gotten frozen. You know that thing?
I haven't.
What's that? Frozen for like 90 seconds. They put you in something that's like minus 200 degrees or something for like 90 seconds.
What?
It's supposed to be good for you.
What the hell is happening at Baskin Robbins? You doing?
You end up being the 30-second flavor.
Oh man. So okay, let's cut to what we would call the present timeline.
Sure.
Fennec wakes up Boba, and the crime bosses are lined up to pay their respect. Have you ever had to do this at all in your life, Catfish? Go to somebody and say, man, I'm so glad you're in charge.
I've usually been a very goody for my entire life, but I can think of a couple cases when I've been called on the carpet for things. I just make my obeisance and go. Not like these jerks. I mean, I think there might be. I think one of them might actually give him something decent and not make a pretty much overt threat against them.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's go through the three.
Yeah, let's go through them.
This first one up is a alien known as an Aqualish. We first saw this alien in Star Wars: A New Hope when they approached Luke at the bar and started making noises, and then Obi-Wan cut its damn arm off. So this is an Aqualish. Well, this one's good. We don't know what in the world it was saying. Neither do Boba or Fennec because they don't have a translator droid. But he left a chest full of credits. That's pretty good, huh?
That is pretty good. Yeah. Why not a translation droid, but they have like a torture droid?
Right. That torture droid, 8D8, was seen in Return of the Jedi, torturing other droids. And so that's the only one they have. He's such a new crime boss, he hasn't gone out and bought some translator droids like a protocol droid.
And that is in there. in their unending quest in Star Wars to have very famous people just do voices. That is Matt Berry doing 88, known from in the States for What We Do in the Shadows and known
Yep.
overseas for quite a variety of things.
Oh yeah, he's been doing stuff forever. Matt Berry. He didn't get to as many cracks as I would have loved, but he wasn't destroyed. He wasn't deactivated, so I assume he'll get to do a bunch more. I'm excited.
Oh hell yes. So the next
right.
thing is so
Then
we have
is a Trandoshan, Doc Strassi.
yeah, he presents a pelt and he says, "May you never leave Mos Espa." Implied in that is hopefully you'll die very quickly without leaving Mos Espa.
Well, can you think of a time when you're like, have you ever said that to anybody? Oh, may you never leave.
Yeah, I hope you stay here for the rest of your life.
Right.
Your short life. Next we have, and this is so awesome. This guy, I didn't put his name down. He was the husband of Selena Myers on Veep. He is so amazing. He is the mayor, Mock Shies, I think it's Shies or Shaz, Majordomo, shows up without a tribute. Indicates he's actually expecting a tribute, which is great.
Love it.
Boba Fett's like, wait, without, again, not being a badass, is like, wait, aren't I supposed to be getting the tribute instead of cutting him down right away? And then,
yes,
on his way out the door, the Majordomo pulls and this is a reference that all the young kids will know. He pulls a Columbo. Comes back.
One more thing, yeah.
And he says, one more thing. I would not be surprised if you receive another delegation in the future. Again, another very clear and ominous threat.
Is that not wonderful? I love it. Now, I should point out that this actor you're talking about, he was on Veep. He's done a lot of things. This is Dave Pasquesi, and I love talking about Dave Pasquesi because I recognized him from the trailers, and I wrote to him on Twitter and said, "Hey, Dave, is this you?" And he said, "Yes, this is me." And so we were the first one to point out, "Hey, that's Dave Pasquesi." And Dave, how do I have a tangential note to Dave? Dave is a famous Chicago improviser. And so I didn't really know Dave too well when I was improvising in Chicago, but Dave does a very famous show with another improviser called TJ Jagodowski, and TJ and I took a bunch of classes there at Second City together. And so, yeah, he is wonderfully smarmy. He, even when he's like, "I think you have this wrong," he's saying it so deliciously smarmy about understandable confusion. He is great. And he lived, so we're going to get to see him again. I love it.
Man, I'm just telling you. Well, I mean, Fennec is trying to help Boba. She's like, "We present you the gift of being able to walk out of here alive."
Oh man, but so good,
so smarmy. He's like, "Let me Columbo this." So good, that whole experience. But again, just a little bit weird because I don't have the sense why Boba is like trying to like.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the Wild West out here, right? You don't go like, all right, I'm not going to impose my will. The people are going to love me. They're going to respect me. And again, always trust a master, not a journeyman, not a training, but a master assassin to know how to rule people.
You are bringing up great points. And so perhaps the storyline of the season is Boba takes enough crap until he unleashes the beast.
I know, but again, when I asked you Ms. Catfish questions earlier, is Boba a villain? You almost had a reaction like, that's ridiculous. He is definitely not acting like that here. In no way.
No, he isn't. Like he's not. And I wonder if fans want him to be more of a villain. He was always on the bad guy's side. And when we talk about Boba later in this podcast, kind of just go down his history a bit, you'll see that I think one of the reasons why he took off is that Star Wars didn't have enough villains. We had so many characters on the good guy's side. The fact that we suddenly got a character who was on the bad guy's side, it was like, oh, good. Another action figure to play with who isn't a stormtrooper or Darth Vader. So I think you're bringing up a good point. Well, how about this? Let's ignoring whether he's now a good guy or always a bad guy or whatever it is.
Speaking of super good guys, there's one more group of good guys we're about to see. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it smart that Boba decides to tell these Gamorrean guards, these beautiful green pigs from the Angry Birds game, they hadn't bent the knee yet. And yet he tells them, if you promise me you'll be loyal, I'll spare you. Do you promise that? And they kneel. So was that the right move? Yes or no? What do you think?
Well, it definitely proved to be the right move.
Yes, it did. Yeah, it seems like it.
Just if it was me in this room, you know, not one of the people that we saw walk in would have walked out.
Man, you would make a great crime boss. Wait, not even the guy who brought you the chest of coins?
Catfish the Hut. That guy would be the one guy.
What about a nice pelt? It gets cold in those Tatooine nights. You don't want a pelt?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say I'm going to give I'm not going to bury the guy in the pelt, but, you know, he made a clear threat that I correctly understood.
Okay. All right. Okay.
There is no way that Majordomo to the mayor is making it home.
Well, not in one piece. Okay. So Crime Lord Catfish is ready to TCB this. I love it.
Hell yes.
Next in the present timeline, we cut to Mos Espa, and we see Boba going to visit the people that I assume assumes he has control over. What do you call it? Is it a shakedown when they say, yeah, your business will thrive as long as I get my cut? What is that? What is that crime known as, Catfish? Extortion?
Good business, I think, is what you say.
Catfish, I think this show is just for you. This is perfect.
Yes, extortion. You know what, though? He does it with a very good face. And in fact, you have to assume that they either made things a little bit quick just for the writing or that she already knew who he was. Because basically 2 seconds after he says who he is, he gets handed his helmet bag full of gold.
I love it.
So she says she doesn't. She's like, "Oh, who are you? What are you?" Da 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 da. And then helmet returned, one shinier than the other,
one heavier than the other, with those delicious credits. Now, this woman who runs the sanctuary is known as Madame Garza, and this is the actress Jennifer Beals.
She's got a feeling.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you have any feelings about this actress, Jennifer Beals, who, based on the trailer, we're definitely going to see again as well? What do you think about her?
Once again, I had to remind Ms. Catfish. I had to tell Ms. Catfish. I was like, guess who this is? She was flabbergasted.
Wow. What do you mean? Because she was impressed or because she was like, boy, she's really let herself go? What's happened to her head?
No, just that she's like, you got to be, she has not let herself go. I mean, how many years ago was Flashdance? She looks like it's like 2 years after
Flashdance was 1983. So
no, shut up.
How many years ago is that? If it's 2021,
38 years.
Wow, that's impressive.
You are kidding me? No, come on.
Flashdance was 83, man. What a feeling, as you called it out.
Oh my God, Bubba, I'm sorry. I just need a moment to cry. All right.
So I want to point out some fun things here in the sanctuary. As I mentioned when we were talking about the Mandalorian and we suddenly saw Bib Fortuna, and I was like, Bib Fortuna was on Jabba's sail barge, which in Return of the Jedi blew up in such a way that nobody should have survived that. Well, apparently Bib Fortuna did. And now here in the sanctuary, who's there at the keyboards? It's this blue elephant-like creature, Max Rebo, who was also on the sail barge in Return of the Jedi. He somehow survived, and he's still playing all the golden hits. Don't you love it?
Oh, man. You know what? It's so nice to see that some people still look the same so many years later.
No, Bib.
Of course, I'm talking about Jennifer
Beals. Right? Yeah, Bib looks a little worse for wear, even though this is 5 years later. Well, maybe that you live through an explosion of Jabba's sail barge. That'll scar anybody. So, hey, it looks good. They got their money. They're going out into town. And there's this debate between Fennec and Boba. Do you want to be feared as a crime boss or do you want respect? Now, I think you would want both, but Catfish, if you had to pick one or the other, which one are you going with?
If I had to, of those two choices,
Yeah.
The first one I would pick would be fear, and then the second one I would pick would be fear.
That's good because I don't respect that answer. So.
Who
No,
needs
I think you do
respect?
want fear. This is crime. I
Yes.
agree with you. I agree with you.
He's not sheriff, for God's sakes. He's the crime boss.
Okay,
He
so
didn't come by for a free donut. He came by for his cut of the profits.
well, okay, let's get to it. Right after they have this debate, they get a bit of fear themselves as they are surrounded by the parkour buddies.
Oh, man.
These Red Raiders here, the Texas Tech Red Raiders surround them. And what do you think of this action scene? My favorite, I had two favorite moments. One was the helmet falling out and people not helping Boba, but running like Jawas to steal his credits. But my second one was Boba is surrounded by these people with these shields, and he fires his rocket off, and it just blows up in his face because it hits the shield and kind of bounces back and knocks him out. Good work, Boba. Good work.
I mean, I would say don't watch the fight too carefully, simply because there are times when Boba is attacking, and I mean, I guess you could use the theory like, well, I'm just going to stay here because I have the shield, so he can't attack me. So if the other person's attacking him, I'll just leave him alone because he can't get out with the shield. There was a lot of one at a time with the attacking with the guys. I still enjoyed it. There was a point, and I think it was the point where the three of them swung around the building.
Oh yeah, that was real parkour. Yeah,
where I thought, okay, now this is drawing attention to itself.
Right. It's
Before
those people
it was
who
just
have to add dance moves to their brawl. Right.
Yeah. And now it's like one of those games on that there's a game show on one channel that's like a tag game show. It felt like that.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
Yeah. It was
where people do flourishes, they pirouette off like a thing to get down to the ground.
Yeah. It was still enjoyable. I would say I rewatched some of the episode and I did skip over the action part. So I'm going to say I enjoyed the modern scenes more than the scenes more than the action.
No, listen, hey, I understand. Listeners, what did you enjoy the most? Once again, at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram. YouTube, leave those YouTube comments. Facebook.com/PHQ. We want this to be a discussion. I'll say that this episode was directed by famed action director Robert Rodriguez. He also voiced that Trandoshan who was like, I hope you'll never leave. So that was his voice of that alien.
He also directed the Mandalorian episode where it was the first appearance of
when
Boba
Boba
Fett.
Kicked ass on all those endless, that endless wave of stormtroopers. And so Boba tells Fennec, he's like, I want one alive. And she gets one. And she realizes maybe she has two, and it's like, this is one too many. Push.
Well, listen, two is hard to take care of. You can't really take on two.
Now, Boba, like I said, he's always been a butt kicker. But after this fight, he tells his Gamorrean guards, who are you exactly right, Catfish, they saved his butt. They came in, they were very loyal. He's like, get me home, get me in the Bacta tank. And they rush him there. So how messed up is Boba from that time in the Sarlacc's gut? Woo.
I don't know, but he definitely has to get his, what I like to call double S.
Double S?
Yeah, Sarlacc shit together. Okay? This is not the Boba I came for. I want my badass Boba.
Hell yeah, I'm with you. Kick butt, man. That's what I say.
Yeah, respect.
Respect. Exactly right. Hey, so the episode ends with him back in the Bacta tank. He's remembering those scenes we talked about where he killed that evil alien, that monster in the sand. And that's episode 1 of 7. We're 25% done with, no, I can't do the math. We're 1/7 done with the season.
It's about 17 point something percent.
I knew you could do math. I love putting you on the spotlight, Catfish. So, hey, we gave you our thoughts, listeners. Please, once again, subscribe, follow, then do a screenshot that prove you're subscribing and follow. Send it to us. We'll announce what the prize we're going to give away is on next week's podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
Sorry, it's about 14.3% in my head. I'm still doing it in my head, but I overdid it. It's 14 point something percent.
You know what? Let's just start the podcast over. Okay. Welcome to
horrible.
So, hey, real quickly, I want to talk real quickly to our listeners. Now, admittedly, if you've listened this long in the podcast, you love this show, you love Boba Fett, and you may already know these things, but I just thought we should do a real quick talk about Boba Fett's history in the Star Wars franchise. Now, you can watch a great special called Under the Helmet on Boba Fett's history about how he appeared in the earlier films and how he was created and his history. But I think it's important to remember that Boba Fett as a character appeared in approximately 5 minutes of screen time in the original 3 movies, A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. And he wasn't in A New Hope until the special editions. And through those special editions, his screen time grew to about 6.5 minutes. Then he became so popular. Why did he become so popular? Well, a lot of people have a million theories about this. Admittedly, they all go back to, well, he looked cool in his armor. It was a good design. But I thought I'd give my own reason why I think Boba Fett became this big, fascinating character in the Star Wars subculture, even though he was barely in any of these films. And in Return of the Jedi, went out like a chump, as everybody knows. Well, what I'd say is back, if you listen to our very first preview podcast here on the Parsec Passion podcast feed, you'll see that, back in 1977, I always talk about I was too young to really know what happened in Star Wars the first time. I was just like, I like robots. Because you didn't have home video back then, because you couldn't stream, because you couldn't do anything. I went and saw that first Star Wars film 10 times in the theater. And so we loved it. And there just weren't a lot of things for kids back then. Like if you came home from school, you would see like TV shows from the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't see new shows made for kids. You would see stuff that was for other people. You would see cartoons. I would see those old Bugs Bunny cartoons that were for shorts from like the 40s and 50s. So we didn't have many new things for us for as kids. And so Star Wars, even though everybody, all ages loved it, for kids, it was like, oh, wow, this is something new for us. And so we just ate it up. Then in the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special, we were told ahead of time in that special, ooh, you're going to see a character who's going to be in the next movie. And so Boba Fett was in this cartoon. We knew, okay, he's the new character. So we had like 2 years of like, okay, this is a new character. And, ooh, guess what? He's a bad guy. And then Empire Strikes Back comes out in 1980. You get the Boba Fett figure. When you're playing with your action figures, Darth Vader, can only do so many things. He can't show up or it's a war. So you would play with Boba Fett anytime you needed an antagonist who wouldn't be who could do anything that a Vader or a generic stormtrooper couldn't do. Like he was a fun character to play with. Then he went out like a chump and returned the Jedi. But it was too late. The fans had already latched onto him as, ooh, this cool guy who outsmarted and captured Han Solo. So even if he went out like a chump, it was too late. He was fascinating to all those kids. And now here, 38 years later, we're still talking about him. Is that ridiculous, Catfish? How could a character who barely did anything become so popular? What is your theory?
There's so many Star Wars fans.
Yep.
Right. And there's that I think that, and then there are a lot of people who are fans. And this is no slight. This is just a thing where it's like you like something, but you want to like something special about it. You want to be like, here's not like everybody could like Luke and everybody could like Darth Vader, but like to grab on to something that not only that, but you can kind of make your own. You can come up with your own ideas about them and who they are and the whole thing.
Yes.
And so I think, because there's such a large Star Wars fanship, and things started to build.
Catfish, I think that is brilliant, and I think it's actually better than my thoughts, so I'll edit that out, everybody.
Okay, great.
No, listeners, hey, these are our thoughts. If you're one of us, if you're loving Boba Fett, hey, write to us and tell us why you love Boba Fett. We want to know. Catfish, it is time for some of our favorite segments when we host our Mandalicious stuff. We're going to have a Bounty Hunter Guild battle for the puck. We're going to have our Mandalicious line of the episode, and we may have some other fun things too. So what do you want to do first? Which game do you want to play?
Oh, man, let's do the Mandalicious line of the episode. I pulled some out.
Let's hear it.
If you've got some, basically we said them all already, and it all happened right there in that place. Okay. Doc Strassi, may you never leave Mos Espa.
Oh, so good.
Mayor Shays is Majordomo. I would not be surprised if you received another delegation in the near
Oh,
future.
so good. Oh,
And then one that was not mentioned on the podcast is AD8, who says, when talking about getting rid of the Gamorreans, he says, their tortured squeals will send a piercing message to all potential challengers to your throne.
you know what?
This is a very matter of fact.
Of course. Well, hold on. I want to nominate another one that I just loved. In
Okay,
that I
go ahead.
mentioned that these Gamorreans are these beautiful green pig bodyguards. Madame Garza said, "Would you like your Gamorreans hosed down and fed?" Oh, that's a little ice cold this of these poor bodyguards. Oh, so which
Ah,
one are you going to pick? These are all great. These are all great. Which
they
one do you like
are
the
all
best?
great. I'm going to pick 88. Their tortured squeals will send a piercing message to all potential challengers to your throne. Just because he's a disembodied, sadistic robot.
Oh, I
What
love it.
about you,
Hey,
Bubba? Who's yours?
I just think I got to give it up to Dave Pasquesi as the major domo. I would not be surprised if you receive another delegation in the near future. Oh, delicious. Oh, so good.
Especially the way he Columboed it. Look it up, kids.
Yes. I
All
love
right.
it.
Well, then, but we will want to know what you think. We'll
Yep.
put it up on the poll, your Mandalicious line of the week, and you can decide for yourself, Bubba. Before speaking of polls, before we want to go to the our debate, do you want to talk about an Insta poll that you've done?
Yeah. So once again, we keep asking you to join us on Twitter, on social media at double PHQ.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word double, the single letter P for podcasts, HQ for headquarters. We put this poll up. So, this show's barely been out. And so we just wanted an instant poll, just like you said. We said, listeners, how would you grade the episode? Would you give it a brilliant, pay tribute to it? Would you call it good, like a Bacta Bath? Would you call the episode fair, like lukewarm water you pull out of a fruit buried in the sand? Or were you not happy with it? Do you want to toss this episode back into the Sarlacc pit? And
Now I've got an
we
update
got
here,
some
Bubba.
votes. Yeah,
We
let's
got
hear
some
it.
votes already. We
Oh,
are
wow.
already up to 27 votes.
Whoa, this is great.
Yes. All
Okay,
right.
so yeah, we just put this poll out. Listeners, you can, if you're hearing this now, this poll will be up for the next 4 days. So please go to our Twitter handle at double PHQ and vote in it. We want to hear the final results. So Catfish, what's everybody saying? What are the poll
All right.
results
Well,
now?
48.1% say brilliant, pay tribute.
Oh, great. Ooh, wow.
22.2% say good like a Bacta Bath.
Okay, that's good.
25.9% say fair to lukewarm water, and 3.7% say toss it back in the Sarlacc pit.
Ooh, I think that's pretty good. So if you add up the good, that gets you to
70.3%. I mean,
73
for
point set, good or better, or brilliant, I should say. And
yeah,
then we had about let's see, about
yeah. If you
28%.
yeah, sure. 70.3%, then the other one would be 29.7.
I'm not so sure, but yeah,
Okay.
about that. Who said it was fair to toss it back in the Sarlacc pit? Once again, we're 1/7 of the way through.
Don't make me do it.
Oh, we won't. We won't. We'll. Okay, so hey, we're gonna go over some more feedback about our podcast in a bit. But hey, Catfish, it's time for the Bounty Hunter Guild battle, where you and I debate a topic based on something that came up on the episode,
Okay.
and we enter the arena to see who wins. All right, you ready?
All right, so here it is, Bubba. I
Let's
will
hear it.
pose the question. You will take one side, and then I will take the winning side.
Okay. Oh no.
You're the new boss in town.
Right.
The mayor doesn't show up to pay you obeisance, and he
No.
doesn't even send you any money.
Oh.
And in addition to that, the lackey that he sends threatens you. Do you send that lackey's head back to the mayor, or do you bide your time and figure out the lay of the land first?
Now, I want to point out that at this point, he didn't even have the Gamorrean guards on his side. Remember, they came
Okay,
after
got
the
it.
major domo.
Absolutely. Sure,
So
sure.
it is currently,
Mhm.
if we take the show at face value, it is currently just him and Fennec Shand. So maybe it is better not to start an open war, until you know all the mayor's forces. You are correct. That was a threat without question.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if it is just me and an assassin, master assassin,
Thank you.
then maybe it is smarter. And so I will say, don't give him much time, but maybe bide my time and gather some intel. So that's my thought. What says you?
All right. So for me, I mean, you just walked right into my trap. I didn't even set a trap. I just asked the question. But anyway, for sure, I think on your very first day of receiving people,
Yeah.
and I would say even if people didn't insult you, you need to send a couple people out on their backs just to let people know what kind of ruler you are and that you should be afraid. And first of all, yes, you don't have a journeyman. You don't have an apprentice. You've got a master assassin with you. You don't need the double G's.
Double G's?
Gamorrean guards. Because if you had sent the mayor's majordomo's head back to him, he would not have dared to attack you. First day, you got to lay down the law.
Okay, hey, listeners, we want to know from you. Vote. Who won this Bounty Hunter Guild battle? Who wins the Bounty Hunter puck from Grief Karga? We want to know. I think we both make good arguments in my favor.
All right, well, hey, Bubba, we've got some reviews, and actually, it has been a while since we've done the Cossack Passion podcast.
It has.
So we've got some reviews that have been kicking around that we finally get to talk about.
Yes, listeners, we need you to follow and subscribe however you can do it. Once again, if you screenshot that follow or subscribe and send that to us, we are going to give you, enter you into a contest to win a prize at the end of the season. But if you could, give us a review on whatever platform you watch us on. It always helps. On YouTube, that's give us those thumbs up. Give us a comment down below. On iTunes, give us a review. I believe they've started allowing reviews on Audible and other podcast platforms. So please give us those reviews. They definitely help us out. Across the pond, our good friends in Great Britain, according to the iTunes store. We had a review there from Ratchet Ost, 5 stars. They called the podcast consistently great. Love any podcast from these two. Thank you so much.
Oh, hell yeah. Suck it, Matt.
Hey now. We heard from other places around the world. Where did we hear from next, Catfish?
Oh, we heard from New Zealand. Fists of Bucho gives it 5 stars. Entitled The Best Mandalorian Podcast in the Galaxy. Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
The review goes on to say, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, Bubba and Catfish made the best Game of Thrones podcast of them all.
Ooh.
Now they make the best Mandalorian podcast, entertaining double L's.
Loyal listeners.
From one side of the parsec to the other with double J's.
Double J's? Wait,
Jocular japes. And double T's.
Double T's?
Tremendous takes and even a double H.
Double H?
Healthy helping of double G's.
No idea.
Generous giveaways.
Oh.
This is the way.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Fist Bucho always was a great friend of ours on the Joffrey podcast about Game of Thrones. We'll be coming back in 2022 with House of the Dragon on the Joffrey podcast feed. And that's from New Zealand, home of Tamora Morrison, the actor who plays Boba Fett. We love it.
Love it. Well, we got some from the old US of A. Ashton Barface gave it 5 stars, says Baby Yoda is awesome. Not my favorite podcast, but still really good.
Oh, 5 stars. Hey,
I'll take that. I will take that. Thank you so much.
Somebody with the handle Lone Spar gave us a 5-star review, wrote, great show, excellent podcast, detailed reviews with comedy mixed in, knowledgeable host, very fun listen if you're a fan of The Mandalorian. This is the way. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, I love it. And then we got another amazing review from someone called Pishaw, 1 star, entitled Sad. Starting with the host names and going downhill from there. Sounds like 2 third graders talking at recess. So sad. So many good mandolin podcasts out there. This isn't one of them. I had to turn it off. Just sad.
Oh, pshaw, that hurts so much.
Thank you for the review, though. We love all reviews.
Yeah, we do. Hey, we try to get better. But even if we are trying to sound like third graders talking at recess.
Yeah, you know what? He He got our bit. He got our bit. We got to change it up now that someone caught on.
You
All
can
right.
download our podcast on Audible. There
Oh.
are a couple of 5-star reviews there, but only one with a written review that says, "Love this podcast. I love this so much. Thank you guys so much. I have spoken." Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
hell yeah. I love it. I love it.
So good. Now, people love us and our silliness, but you know one thing people really love is serious musical discussion.
Really?
Yes, really. Our good buddy Double M, Matt Murdick, who's at Musical Concepts on Twitter, is going to be with us each and every week of the Book of Boba Fett, breaking down Ludwig Göransson's incredible score. And before we even play Double M's breakdown of the segment, what did you think of the score, Catfish? Did you like it?
I didn't really pay too much attention to it, but I think I need to because of, and I don't want to spoil it, some of the things that Matt said.
Okay. All right. Well, here we're going to take you, going to have Double M take you away into the world of Book of Boba Fett score. Take it away, Matt.
Hey there, everybody. Loved this episode. Hope you did too. I do want to give a quick shout out before I start talking about how Ludwig transitioned from the theme that we heard for Boba Fett in The Mandalorian into this brand new theme that we got for this particular show, which is fabulous. And I'm not really going to break that down this time. I just want to show how the transition went from the Mandalorian theme, which we actually heard a bit of Boba Fett's Mandalorian theme in the part of the episode where they were coming into Mos Espa to go to the club. You heard a little bit of that theme then. But Ludwig spent a good portion of this episode actually transitioning from that theme to this grand theme that we get at the end of the episode. We get a little snippet of it at the beginning. At any rate, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I do want to give a quick shout out to that version of the Cantina theme, John Williams's Cantina band theme that was in A New Hope. It was a fabulous version, and it was actually done by the director, Robert Rodriguez, who is a decent guitar player, but another absolutely wonderful guitar player who I imagine did all of the fancy stuff, and that is Mark Del Castillo, who was on the Austin scene in the 90s and was a very fabulous guitar player, still a fabulous guitar player, obviously, because that version is great. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's talk about how this particular theme evolved from what we know. That one right there. It transitioned in a way because of the use of harmony and rhythm into this new theme. And he did a great way of slowly building it out till you get to the very end and you get the big theme reveal. But there's a particular note in this theme that the old Boba Fett we associated with in The Mandalorian. This one, that's what we call the flat five. And what basically this theme did was outline a diminished chord. And right off the bat, we hear Ludwig use the same kind of notes in the part where we see Boba Fett emerge from the Sarlacc pit, or he digs his way out from the belly of the Sarlacc, which is under the sand. Love that scene. That was great. But he uses this part right here. It's that second phrase that emphasizes the notes that we're used to associating with Boba Fett, that flat five. You don't need to know these numbers, but that's the note in that second part of that phrase. So what this is doing, using just one note, he's able to pay homage to his original theme and transition it into a new one by using the flow and rhythm of the new theme, but he's also doing the same harmonies in it. Now, when the big theme is introduced, again, we have that rhythm from the opening where we saw him escape the Sarlacc pit, but that note is no longer present. Instead, there is a transition, and the rhythm carries the transition over to the new melody. Also, there is a rhythmic tribute, in a way, to what Ludwig is doing from the old theme to the new theme. If you recall, there is a whole bunch of stuff that rhythmically is the same, but also carries in the main melody that same kind of bounce to it that the old Boba Fett theme has. Those are the ways that Ludwig was able to take this new theme and make it perfectly cohesive with the old theme he had used for The Mandalorian, which I thought was a brilliant way to do it. Back to Bubba and Catfish right now.
Now, see, that's what I didn't notice when I was watching, how the scores were slightly changed from The Mandalorian to this episode, and also how the Cantina score was part of the original but slightly changed. So thank you, Matt, for the edification.
Thank you so much, Matt. Listeners, once again, Matt is going to be with us all season long, breaking down the score. Be sure to follow him on @musicalconcepts on Twitter. Catfish.
Yes.
Let's have a quiz, which I was hinting up before.
Oh, no.
Who are those red parkour assassins working for? Are they working for the mayor? Are they working for that Trandoshan? What was his name again? Doc Strassi, who says, "May you never leave, Mos Espa." Were they possibly working for Madame Garza? And there's a twist. Heck, are they from somebody else? What do you think?
So your supposition, I think, to me would be that it's too obvious that they're from the mayor. But I'm all in on that. I'm gonna say the mayor. I'm gonna say the mayor doesn't like to waste time. First delegation not successful. Second delegation comes hard upon. What do you think?
Maybe I'm putting my hopes in it. You're right. You would logically think the mayor is the one who really seems like the troublesome one in this episode. But because there's a part of me that thinks we aren't supposed to know, like they didn't say who they were sent from. Maybe in the next episode, that captured one will say, "Listen, the mayor sent me. Don't kill me, whatever." Because this episode didn't bother to tell us, I'm going to say it's a bit of a mystery. And when you hire an actress like Jennifer Beal, who has been around since '83, I think maybe there is a twist with Madame Garza. That's my early guess.
All right.
You give them some coins so it makes it look like you're on Boba's side, and then you immediately get those coins back. Republic credits.
So good.
Hey, we've mentioned it all this podcast, and we are serious about it. Whether you use Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, however you are online, we want you to interact with us. We want you to be in this crime world of Tatooine on this journey. So once again, @PHQ, Facebook.com/PHQ, YouTube.com/C for channel/P Media. Join us as we go into it. Catfish. How can people reach you on Twitter?
They can hit me up at CJGman67, your 67th favorite CJG man. Bubba, what about you? How can they hit you up?
You can find me on Twitter @FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM, @FitandTrim on Twitter. And you'll hear us next time on
Parsec Passion.
Man, Catfish, you were so good. May you never leave Parsec Passion.
Over!